Hare Krishna, previous member obeisances, glories to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So thank you so much for joining. We'll start with the Mangalacharna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jnantimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakrurunmalitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Agyantamindasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakrurunmalitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining. So we will continue with our discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. Last time we finished the individual presentations on the 7th chapter of the Gita. So I wanted to give an overview of the chapter, and after that we can stop for any discussions that is needed. So let me share my screen.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, is it okay to announce the groups? I've put it in the chat. You just have to let people know that they are assigned a group and make note of their group number. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for the service, Prabhu. Yeah, so if you can make a note of the group that you belong to, and if for some reason you've not been assigned a group, then then please either reach out to Chaitanya Ras Prabhu or to me. Make sure that you are in a group. Okay. So the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the beginning of the middle section of the Gita, knowledge of the Absolute. And this section talks about Bhakti. So one of the main components of Bhakti is knowing where you repose your faith. So Krishna begins with giving Arjuna that understanding, where to repose his faith. So the first verse of the 7th chapter it's a very interesting and a significant verse because it is Krishna's introduction to the process of bhakti. Right? So he says, Maya Sakta Manapartha Yoga Yunchan Madashraya Asamshyam Samagram Mam Yatha Gyasyasi Tatshunu. This verse essentially is a summation of the entire process of bhakti. And if we look at it in the reverse order, then we see that what Krishna is revealing to Arjuna and us is the step-by-step progress that one makes in the process of bhakti to ultimately achieve. Right? So it ends with Tat Shruno. Right? The verse ends with Tat Shruno. The process of bhakti begins with Tat Shruno, by hearing about Krishna or from Krishna. Right? So, of all the 9 limbs of bhakti, Shravanam is the most potent because everything else actually comes from it. If you see um, um, Kirtan, so it's said that Sukadev Goswami perfected his life by Kirtan. But before he could do Kirtan, Shravanam, he heard from Srila Vyasadeva and the disciples of Srila Vyasa. Right? And Prahlad Maharaj perfected his life by Smaranam. But before he could do Smaranam, he heard from Narad Muni. So the process of bhakti is beginning with Tatshunu, hearing about Krishna. Then by hearing, one will know about Krishna. Yat kyasasi samagraham. And asamshayam. When one knows about Krishna, one becomes free of doubt. If you remember in the 4th chapter, Krishna had mentioned that a doubting person does not acquire any perfection in this life or next. Ashadhaya sa samshayati vinashati nayam lokasti na paro na sukham sanshayatma. So, but if one is to hear from Krishna, about Krishna, then one will know Krishna and one becomes free of all doubt. What does one do when one is free of doubt? Madashrava. One will take shelter of Krishna and perform bhakti, yoga yunja. One then will actively execute the process of bhakti and maya sakta partha, which is the goal. Then one becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness. So in this way, Krishna begins with summarizing the process of bhakti, and then he will expand on this verse later on. So how does Krishna introduce himself to Arjuna? So essentially, Krishna says that everything rests upon me. So what is everything? Everything that is gross, the Pancha Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, everything that is subtle, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego, and everything that is spiritual. So Krishna does not exclude anything. He says gross, subtle, spiritual, everything rests upon Krishna. So Krishna says that I am the cause of it, I maintain it, and I destroy it. Now, there is no destruction of spirit, of course. The destruction applies more to matter. So remember, this is Krishna introducing himself to Arjuna. He's telling Arjuna about himself. So he reaches down to what Arjuna can see around him. Arjuna is a king. He has a kingdom. He sees buildings. He sees trees. He sees people. He sees personalities. And essentially, Krishna is saying, all that you see around yourself, I am the cause of it. I maintain it. And when time comes, I destroy it. Now, this is not the ultimate description of Krishna. But because Krishna is dealing with conditioned souls, he is talking in their terms. So Krishna could say also that I'm eternally consorting in Golok Vrindavan with my friends and gopis. I'm herding cows. He doesn't say that because we don't have access to that. It just becomes something that is theoretical. But he tells us what we can see. We can see the gross elements. We can experience the subtle elements, and we can be aware of the spiritual elements. So if we develop this understanding that Krishna is there everywhere, Krishna is instilling in us the ability to see him everywhere around and see everything in relationship to Krishna. So the reason that Krishna is giving this is to help us perceive us. That's why he's talking about things that are perceptible to us, right? So he gives several examples how he is the defining quality. He says, I'm taste of water, everybody drinks water. So Prabhupada would say that if you drink water and you think that Krishna is the taste of water, just that will take you back to Godhead. Because Krishna is presenting himself in that way. He says, I'm light of the sun and the moon, I'm the fragrance of the earth, I'm the sound of ether, I'm heat and light of fire. So in the previous verse, he had talked about how he is the Panch Mahabhuta. He's earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now he's talking about the Tanmatras. How does one perceive water? By taste. How does one perceive earth? By its fragrance. How does one perceive ether? By the sound that travels in it. How does one perceive fire? By heat and light. Ability in men points to the ahankar, the thought that they are the cause of whatever is happening. And then Krishna starts speaking more about, and this is not a comprehensive list, Krishna gives many more examples, but the idea is to present that Krishna is talking about himself as the essence of everything, material and spiritual, right? So he says, I'm the syllable Om. The entire Vedas unfold from the Om. It's the Shabda Brahman. I'm the root cause of everything, right? And then Krishna speaks this verse that gives a wonderful analogy of a necklace of pearls. Matata paratram nanyat kinchedasti dhananjaya. That just like the pearls are strung on a thread, so Krishna is supporting the universe. Mai sarvam idam sutrimani gna eva. Right? So the analogy is very apt because when you see a pearl necklace, then you see the pearls. But you don't see the thread that is holding together the pearls. And Krishna says, I'm that thread. So when we see things around us, we see the external manifestations. We see mountains and rivers, we see planets, we see different kinds of embodied beings. But one who has taken the vision that Krishna is asking them to take, they can see the hand of Krishna everywhere. So Krishna is now giving an opportunity for us to perceive him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni makes this point that Bhakti is one way or the other thinking about Krishna. And in fact, he says that even if one thinks about Krishna in a negative way, that could also lead to perfection. Kamsa was thinking of Krishna in fear. The gopis were thinking in lust. Shishupal was thinking of Krishna in envy. So even though these are all negative emotions, but because they cause the person to be constantly thinking of Krishna, they still achieve some kind of perfection, not necessarily the perfection the devotees aspire, but some kind of perfection. So here Krishna is saying that think of me positively. When you see the light of the sun and moon, understand that it is a reflection of the effulgence from the body of Krishna. So, after making this point that he is everywhere, one may ask, or Arjun may ask, then why doesn't everybody simply take to Krishna consciousness? That if you're there, if you're the sound in ether, and if you're the fragrance of the rose, if you're the smell of the earth, you're all pervasive. Then why doesn't everybody take to Krishna consciousness? And then Krishna talks about people who take to Krishna consciousness and people who do not take to. Right? He talks about 4 kinds of people who reject Krishna and 4 kinds of people who accept Krishna. Right? So what are the 4 kinds? He says that the Mura, the materialists, they're so busy in accumulating material things or wealth, they just have no time for Krishna. Then the mental speculators, they're constantly debating on various theories that if there is a God, who created God? And if there is a God, then how does God allow bad things to happen? And maybe this God is present and this God is subordinate. So they just speculate. Then there is the Naradhamas. The Naradhamas are the lowest, the atheists. They simply deny the existence of God. And there is the Asurik Bhava Ashrita. So the Asuras, they fight with Krishna and they throw bows and arrows at him to destroy his body. And that's what the impersonalists do. They try to destroy the body of Krishna and say that he's not a person, but he is some kind of energy. And what happens to these 4 kinds of people? Well, before that, let's talk about the 4 kinds of people who turn towards Krishna. So there is the artho, those who are desiring wealth. There is desiring wealth is the artharthi. The artho is those who are distressed. Then there is the curious, that they're inquisitive about Krishna. And then there is the Gyanis, those who have knowledge. So they have material desires, but they turn to Krishna for help. And Krishna calls them magnanimous. So the reason he calls them magnanimous is because Sripad Ramanujacharya comments on this verse, saying that why does Krishna call them magnanimous? Because they're coming for material benefits. And then he says that Krishna is so eager to get the love of the jivas that even if they are coming with material desires, the fact that they're coming to Krishna, Krishna considers them to be magnanimous. And then out of the 4, he considers those in knowledge to be most dear to him. So knowledge here is those who are in Atmagyan, those who have gone through Karma Kand, Karma Yoga, Gyan, and are now at a stage where they are firmly fixed in the realization that I'm not the body, but I am the soul. So they're detached from the material conception. And for them to become attached to Krishna is relatively easy. So because they have followed the process that Krishna has laid out, the Gyanis are those who have read the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita and followed the process and come to the stage of knowledge of the soul. They may not have knowledge of Krishna. That Krishna is giving them. But at least they have this knowledge that I'm not the body. But because they are not shackled by this material conception, they very quickly take to Krishna consciousness. So that's why Krishna says that they are very dear to me. For those who have turned away from Krishna, now this is the reason why even though Krishna is everywhere, everyone cannot see Krishna. Because Krishna says that I put this curtain of Maya, illusion. And because of that, they do not see me or know me for who I am. And Krishna said, I can see them. So this curtain is not a two-way curtain. It does not cover Krishna. Right? So the Krishna says this material energy of mine is under my control, which means it never covers Krishna. And the Mayavadis sometimes say that when the Brahman descends as an avatar, then the avatar gets covered by Maya. And that point is clearly negated over here. The Krishna can never be covered by Maya because Krishna is always superior. Now, even the jivas are superior to Maya, but they are minute. And ultimately, it is not that Maya overpowers them. It is that they themselves take shelter of Maya. So it's like one person deliberately goes and then sits in a certain kind of a vehicle that acts in a certain way. Once the person sits in the vehicle, then the vehicle will move in the way that it is programmed to move. But the person has made the decision to sit on that vehicle. So it's not that Maya is actively hunting after people and looking to overpower them. But it's more like people take shelter of Maya. And once they take shelter of Maya, they are unable to see Krishna. So the interesting thing is that the difference between those who reject Krishna and those who accept Krishna is simply where they turn for sustenance. Factually, these 4 propensities are present in everyone. So it's not that the materialist who is desiring wealth and the artharthi who is desiring wealth have different propensities, same propensities. They both are desiring wealth. But the difference is that the Mudha, he turns away from Krishna. And the artharthi, he turns towards Krishna. So you can establish some kind of a correlation. That the Mudha, when he turns towards Krishna, becomes artharthi. The Naradama, who is the atheist, he becomes artho, becomes distressed. Then the Maya Partha Jnana, those who are mental speculators, they become Jnani. So the Jnana becomes Jnani because Maya Partha, then they, instead of taking shelter of Maya, they take shelter of Krishna. And the Asura Mahava Ashrita, those who are impersonalist. And they're impersonalist because they're reading all kinds of partial interpretations of the scriptures, misinterpretations. But when they actually become inquisitive and go to the right source, then they become jigyasur. So Prabhupada gives the example of Dhruva Maharaj as being an artharthi, and Gajendra as being artho, and Sukadev Goswami or the four Kumars as being Gyani, and the sages of Naimisharan as being Jigyasur. So these are all cases of Mishra Bhaktas. And when they get the mercy or association of a devotee, they become Shuddha Bhaktas. But because they're turning to Krishna, the component of bhakti is there. So Krishna then also talks about some other kinds of people who do not take to him. Then there is the demigod worshippers. They have faith, but they have faith in the devas. And these are then there is the impersonalist. The impersonalists are different from the Mayavadis, right? The Mayavadis feel that there is no personal existence of the God. But the Brahmavadis, they understand that the Brahman is resting on the personality of Godhead, so they don't negate the personality of Godhead, but they don't have attachment to the person. They're more interested in the Brahman. So they're more interested in Om Shanti Shanti, just peace, nothingness. So they worship Brahman. And then there is those who are mokshakrata, that they worship desiring liberation. So Krishna says that those who worship the devas are less intelligent. And then he gives the reason that the benefits given by the devas are temporary, they're material, and ultimately they're coming from Krishna. So all this effort for something temporary. Those who worship the Brahman, he actually says they have no intelligence. And even though it would appear to be a more elevated platform, but Krishna condemns them because the fact that they're almost there. Those who worship Brahman, they can very easily take to devotional service. But because they lack spiritual intelligence, they do so much of endeavor for something that may or may not sustain. And then, of course, there is those who are desiring liberation. So those who are fully conscious of Krishna as the source of the material manifestation, the demigods, and the yagyas. So Krishna introduces these terms that will that will be the link to the 8th chapter. So what is Adi Yagya? What is Adi Deva? What is Adi Bhuta? So Krishna introduces this term towards the end of the 7th chapter, and Arjun will begin the 8th chapter by asking all these questions. But the point that he makes here is that one who sees Krishna as the source of everything finally attains perfection. Okay, so this is a brief overview. The presentations that were done last time were excellent. They covered the points in greater details. And I'm essentially summarizing them for the sake of continuity. So let me stop the share. Give me some way to stop share. Yeah. Okay. And if you have any discussions, we can have them now. Okay. Kokila Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, you were saying the worshipping devatas are less intelligent, and worshipping Brahman no intelligent, and desiring liberation. Is there anything, Prabhu?
Krishna doesn't, he considers them as deviants, but doesn't really say anything about, doesn't condemn them. He just says that they belong to the category of people who have faith, but not in Krishna.
Okay, so that's why I want to check. Thank you.
Yeah. Rajiv Shyam Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I guess my question is more to the slide where you, Kokila Mataji was also referring to. I thought people who worship Brahman are also desiring for liberation. So looks like my interpretation was wrong. But like people, so that's one. So are people who are worshipping Brahman, are they looking for liberation, or what are they actually trying to do?
It's a good question, Prabhu. So one thing we have to understand that, and this will be good also for subsequent understanding, that when Krishna is doing these classifications, they are meant for our understanding. It's not that everybody fits in one box neatly. That, one person has a flag and he can only be Maya Partha Jnana, or he could only be a materialist. The person could be a materialist and a demigod worshipper. Right? So the person could be a Brahmavadi desiring liberation. So as in everything, like when we study science, that initially the classifications are given for ease of understanding. Right? But one person can basically be in different boxes depending on the nature. People have free will; they can do a lot of things that pleases them. But Krishna does categorize them in order to explain to Arjun that what are the categories of people, what is the propensities of people that will turn them away from Krishna. And the idea is that Krishna is encouraging. So when we look at these people, I don't know about you, but when I was looking at these people, I was saying, okay, those are the Muras, those are the Naradhamas. But actually, all those people are us. We are the Muras. We are the Naradhamas. Right? We are the Maya Partha Jnanas. We are the Asurik Bhavashritas. Right? So in the early days, Prabhupada was once giving a class on 26 Second Avenue, and then he was speaking very, very strongly against the Mayavadis. And this is early days, so all his students at the time, they were Westerners. They had no idea about Mayavadis or Brahmavadis. They knew nothing about all this. So Prabhupada gave one class and he was really smashing the Mayavadis are rascals and all that. And then one of the person who was attending a class, he thought the Mayavadi is a person. He said, who's this Mayavadi guy? He must have really upset Swamiji. Swamiji is so angry at him. So the other person said, no, it's not a person. It's basically a kind of person. And the person later on became a devotee. And then he said that he realized that the person that Prabhupada was talking about was him. He said he realized that Prabhupada was talking to him. That it's not that the Mayavadi is sitting somewhere outside in the tree. He's sitting right in front of Prabhupada. And when he was speaking, smashing, he was trying to smash the Mayavadi propensities in the person. we all have this tendency. We want to be God. We want to control things. We want everything to happen as per our desires. We get angry when things don't happen the way we want. These are all tendencies of dominion, of my will should be the supreme will. Some cases it's more subtle, some cases it's more gross. So when Krishna is saying all this, he's not really saying that we go around saying people that you're a mula, you're a asur. It's basically for him to, he's saying that we see in ourselves what these tendencies are and know that because of these tendencies, then Maya comes and covers us. So at least what we can do is to change the focus of this tendencies. And that's what devotees do. Like very few people become pure devotees on the first day. Even though they may be taking to the chanting of Hare Krishna, doing deity worship, taking initiation, they still carry with them all these desires for so many things. But what they do is, now they go to Krishna. Once a disciple asked Prabhupada that, I find myself going to Krishna for material desires. Prabhupada said, very good. Who else will you go to if not to Krishna? Go to Krishna. Because that's what Krishna does, right? He takes our desires, purifies them, and elevates. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Chaitanya Ras, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So my question was from the standpoint of people who realize Paramatma and people who realize Brahman. What's the course or what's the end goal? That's the first question. The second question is, do they ever realize or do they ever get a chance to realize the personal feature of Krishna, or is it again they have to come back to the material world and get an association with a devotee, and that's when they sort of at least in the path of realization of the personal form?
So yes, I think the answer to the second question is yes. In terms of the destination, those who worship Brahman, that's where they go. They go into the Brahman. They stay in there for as long as they want. Prabhupada says that ultimately they fall because there's no rasa. There's no the soul is anandamai, that is lacking over there. So then they fall down, and so reaching the Brahman is a very, 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 very exalted position. If you look at it, reaching Swarga is so difficult. Most of the Vedas is reaching Swarga, and then reaching Brahmalok, it's even much more difficult. In the Rudra Gita, Lord Shiva says that one who lives his life perfectly according to the scriptures for 100 lifetimes, he gets the position of Brahma. And if he makes a mistake, then no, some other position. Right? So very, very exalted position. Brahman is way, way beyond that. Right? So these are people who are very fixed in what they want their destination to be. But for whatever reason, they have not got the association of devotees. Prabhupada said when they get the association of devotees, then they very quickly take to devotional service because they have already developed detachment. They're already situated in Atma Gyan. They do not have material hankerings, and the devotees can easily guide them to spiritual attachment. What is the destination of those who worship Paramatma? Prabhupada says that they go to Brahmalok. They go to the planet of Brahma, and at the end of Brahma's life, they follow the destination of Brahma. So in most of the cases, Brahma goes back to Godhead, and they follow Brahma back to Godhead. In some cases, Brahma does not. So that's what Prabhupada explains in one lecture.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Bhakti Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So again, going back to Kokila Mataji's question about the people who desire liberation, are they not intelligent, like as per the verse 29? In that translation, Prabhupada has given that intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service.
So the reason Krishna says they're not intelligent is because they have the ability to go to the spiritual world. So it's kind of like this, that there are two students, and one of them is not very good academically, the other one is very good academically. And the one who's very good academically can go into any college, but he chooses to go to not the top tier college. Right. So that person is considered to be a bigger fool because he has the potential to do it. Right. That's why Krishna says that they are not intelligent.
Here, I think Krishna is saying he is intelligent, no? Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service.
So that is not the verse. Let me find the verse for you.
Okay.
The verse that Krishna talks about is so the verse is 24.
Yes, so that's the impersonal person, right? Impersonalist.
Correct. So those who are desiring liberation, that Krishna does not say that they are intelligent or non-intelligent, right? He just says that they are what you would consider to be materialistic devotees. That they're taking some kind of shelter, but not taking shelter of Krishna. And so he does not the intelligent persons over here is not really a qualification of the person in the sense that Krishna is glorifying him or not. He's just saying that there is a category of people who are intelligent enough to understand that they need to escape the cycle of birth and death. So they are they're aspiring for liberation. So these are Mishra Bhaktas. That Shuddha Bhaktas they have no desire for liberation also. So they're Mishra Bhaktas.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Chitra Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, sorry my video is not working. As you said that devotee also carry desire. So like how will I know that whether I'm a pure devotee or not, or any other person is pure devotee or not? And if a devotee is carrying a desire, does that mean he is not a pure devotee? Can you briefly explain definition of pure devotee? What means pure devotee?
So in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami defines pure devotee as Anibilashita Shunyam Gyanakarmadya Navratam Anupulena Krishnanu Anushilanam Bhakti Ruttamam. So it's actually definition of pure devotional service, but by association also of pure devotee. So Anyabilashita Shunyam. So Abhilash is desires, and Anyabilash is that no other desires, right? So Rupa Goswami does not say that Abhilasha Shunya, that the person is devoid of desires. So the person has desires, but Anukulena Krishna, that he has desires to serve Krishna in a way that is favorable to Krishna according to the recommendations. Right? So it's not possible for the soul to be without desires. The soul is full of desires. And that's what Prabhupada explains is the reason the Brahman liberated souls fall, because there is no venue for them to fulfill their desires. The devotees are full of desires, but their desires are to serve Krishna. So one part of your question was, how do I know that my desire are materialistic or not? This is the litmus test. That does their desire take me towards Krishna or away from Krishna? That's the test, right? Because otherwise, the desires in themselves, they don't fall in any particular category. Like the devotees are busily earning money, trying to build temples, distributing books. There's so many desires, right? So in themselves, the desires don't fall in any category, but what they are being reposed in, that determines whether it's material desire or spiritual desire.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Naradi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, so my question is about like the bhaktas who doesn't make it to go loka with Krishna, but do they also have to, like you were saying that most of us, or like whoever doesn't make it, they have to go to Swarga, right? Is that correct?
For devotees?
Not only devotees, like most of the jivas, like if they have done some of bhakti, but they don't like actually are like 100%. So like, because the concept of Swarg, what I understand is that it's like opulent and you just go there and enjoy. But is there any concept of bhakti? Like, does the devotees who do not make it to Goloka or in Krishna's service, so do they get to serve, or like in Swarga is just only opulence and enjoyment? Do they then Jiva is supposed to like enjoy, or like how would they continue bhakti unless they come back to between the time that they go from the material world and come back again to material world? So in that time in the Swarga, are they just enjoying, or they going be doing bhakti, or like?
So, in the 6th chapter, I think that's what you're probably referring to. But that was referring to those who are performers of Astanga Yoga, not necessarily devotees, but they're followers of Astanga Yoga. And if they fall in an early stage, they go to Swarga and then they come back. If they fall at a later stage, they take birth in the family of devotees. For those who are practicing bhakti, Krishna just gives them an opportunity to continue to practice their bhakti. So if you are not able to complete your bhakti, then Krishna continues to give them opportunities. They take birth in the family of devotees. They get association of devotees. They quickly take to bhakti. You know, we are all personal examples of that. That so many people go to temples. So many people meet devotees. Why do few people immediately get attracted? Why do some people immediately start asking questions and going regularly to the temple, associating with devotees? They're picking up from previously. Right? That's Krishna's arrangement. So that's his biggest benediction, that he continues to give them opportunity. Materially, where they are situated, it's just karma. It's difficult to say. Right? It's, what the jiva desires, what he deserves, what Krishna grants. It's difficult to say. In Chaitanya Leela, we saw Krishna's, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. They were all the way from Maharaj Prataparudra, the great king, to Pundarik, who was very, very opulent, to Kovalecha, who basically had nothing. He lived in a hut that was leaking. Yeah. So all equally exalted devotees, but materially in very, very different position, based on what they desired, what they wanted, what Krishna thought was best for them. So they get those positions.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Just one clarification, Prabhuji. So in Swarga, is there any kind of like the soul gets to do any bhakti, or is just purely like enjoying in this world?
It's a good question. In the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, this point is made by Brahma that bhakti, by its very definition, has to be something that can be performed everywhere by everyone at all times. That's the nature of bhakti. So the point he makes is that by the arrangement of Krishna, no one can be devoid of the opportunity to perform bhakti anywhere. So if you look at the activities of the residents of the heavenly planets, a lot of the activities that they do is worship of Krishna. So they're definitely performing devotional service. They have that position because they're more exalted devotees than we are. They get an opportunity to see Krishna face to face, right? You know, they're much closer to Krishna than we are. They also have more opulences. They have more opportunities to enjoy also. So that definitely is something that is that tends to distract them. But right from the planet of Brahma to the
Can I
lowest
hear you,
planet.
Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Say that again. So right from the planet of Brahma to the lowest planet, everybody has opportunities to perform bhakti at all points of time. So universal principle. Okay,
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mati.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a question related to Advaita philosophy. And is there any relation between Advaita philosophy and Mayavada philosophy? Any difference or similarity?
It's the same. Advaita philosophy is Mayavada philosophy. Advaita philosophy, they say that. So Dvaita is the difference between the Lord and the Jiva. Advaita, there's no difference between the Lord and the Jiva. That's their submission is that when the Supreme Lord comes to the material world, he is covered by Maya. So then the corollary to that is that if the Supreme Lord can be, so Mayavadi will say that Tattvamasi, that you are Narayan. Like, so he'll address you. So Mayavadis, they address one another as Narayana-asmi, that you are Narayan. Then the person says, how can I be Narayan? He says, well, you are Narayan, but you are covered by Maya, so that's why you don't realize you are Narayan. So what the Vaishnavas say is that if Narayan can be covered with Maya, that means Maya is more powerful than Narayan. Right? So that means they are not really worshipping Narayan, even in the impersonal form. They are worshipping Maya, because Maya has the ability to cover the Lord, whether in the personal or the impersonal form. That's why they're called Mayavadis. So the Advaita philosophy, Sripad Shankaracharya, so they kind of subscribe to the same notion.
Okay.
Yeah. So last question, Chaitanya Rasprabhu.
Not a question, Prabhu, just a comment. At least what I've learned from senior devotees, this is relating to what Chitra Mataji was asking about the pure devotional service. What I've understood is if you are in a position to enjoy chanting or feel like doing more chanting, or you take the taste of the chanting, that's a kind of a litmus test to say how well are you progressing in the bhakti. Just a comment.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we will end over here, and I'm going to be sending this presentation over to you for next week. If you can prepare in your groups for chapter 8. I have the it's a typo, it's section 4. I have the 4 sections there, and it's also in the PowerPoint presentation that I will send you. So now that you know your respective groups, please take the time to prepare the presentations. I think you're all doing an excellent job. I just wanted to point out a couple of things as ways to improve. One is that everybody has already read the verses, so there's no need to read the verses out in the presentation. The idea is that you read the verses, read the purport, understand the essence of what it is, and then present it. Like last time I noticed that some devotees were simply reading that one verse after another verse after another verse, that everybody has already read. What we want to hear is your realizations as a group, your understanding of the section. Stay within the time limit of 5 minutes and have a single person do the presentation. Okay. Vajna Prabhu, you have a question or you forgot?
Yes. So I would like to know the exam format. Maybe you sent in the beginning, but I'm not finding it. So could you please send it again?
The format of what?
The test, like for the first 6 chapters, right?
I already discussed that, right? It should be in one of the recordings.
Is it in the first class?
Not in the first class. It was when I finished the 6th chapter.
Okay.
Should be there in the recording.
Okay.
And yes, thank you for reminding. Few of you have taken tests, most of you have not. So I would again encourage you to take the tests. The more you let them pile up, the more difficult it will be. So like I said, I've been teaching Bhakti Sastri since 2003, and without fail, I see the students who are regular in taking their tests are the ones who are able to complete Bhakti Sastri. The students who think that I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next month, they struggle to do it. So if you have to do it anyway, do it sooner than later. Okay, so we'll Gayatri Mataji, you have a point to make?
It's not a point. I was trying to find that Krishna mentions that his inferior energy has 7 elements, but then Prabhupada mentions that this 7 they also divide by 24. So where do you know where can I find those 24 elements? Like what are they?
I can send them to you if you want. I have a list that so it's essentially 4 sets of 5. So earth, water, fire, air, ether, the 4 Pancha Mahabhutas, the 4 Tanmatras, the 5 Tanmatras, the 5 senses, then the 5 action senses, then the 3 subtle, and then the jiva, right? So 4 times 5, 20, plus 3, plus 1. I can send it to you as a document if you want.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.